It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. We are live. So we got a good show today. We are, of course, going to go and talk about the reaction to the Derek Chauvin trial that ended yesterday with three guilty verdicts. This is great news, at least when it comes to holding Derek Chauvin accountable for what he did to Mr. Floyd. And then we're going to talk about the response. Oh, the response. MAGA is not doing well. There is a meltdown going on in MAGA world. I'm going to talk about that. Then we're going to go to the other side and criticize Nancy Pelosi for her own cringe statements against on the issue here. Fun for all. We also are going to talk about Trump's legacy, meaning the border wall, and how it was easily defeated, and why Joe Biden should absolutely not, and I mean not, continue this wall. Fun. And then we also have another leftover from the Trump administration. We have FoxConn that is screwing over Wisconsin once again. Fun. So, just some fun segments on this Wednesday. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. You may be wondering where my jacket is. My cat's laying on it. You cannot disturb the cat. You can't do it. It's not happening. She's like an 11-year-old cat. I am not going to remove my cat from my jacket. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Anyway, so we are not at red alert. All systems functional. Everything is nominal. So let's get going with the show. Oh, please like and share the stream. All right. Let's do it. Do not disturb the cat. Drew. On Tuesday, after just 24 hours of deliberation, a jury found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty of all counts against him for the murder of George Floyd. Predictably, the right wing exploded with a white-hot rage that somehow a white police officer could actually be held accountable for the death of a black man, despite, of course, the fact that they've been trying so hard and predicting, like, the defense destroyed the prosecution in the Chauvin case. he was on drugs. Officer was justified. Nope, didn't happen that way. Sorry. So now I have a collection of different right-wing figures that have responded to this in pretty predictable yet disgusting ways. We're going to start out with our favorite white nationalist, Tucker Carlson, with this white-hot nuclear take. Take a look.
Spend the rest of his life in prison. Is that a fair punishment? Is the officer guilty of the specific crimes for which he was just convicted? We can debate all that, and over this hour we will. But here's what we can't debate. No mob has the right to destroy our cities. Not under any circumstances, not for any reason. No politician or media figure has the right to intimidate a jury. And no political party has the right to impose a different standard of justice on its own supporters. Those things are unacceptable in America. All of them are happening now. If they continue to happen, decent, productive people will leave. The country as we knew it will be over. So we must stop this current insanity. It's an attack on civilization.
It's an attack on civilization. So this entire thing, again, you're hearing the narrative, and you've been hearing it for at least the last few days, leading up to this verdict, that it was the mob, Maxine Waters, and all that. So it's a theme that it actually wasn't, the fact that Derek Chauvin was guilty of murdering George Floyd. No. Instead, they're painting this as a noble sacrifice to prevent the mob from burning down cities. That's what this is. That somehow the jury knew this and made the decision to throw Derek Chauvin in prison to appease the mob, to protect, quote-unquote, Western civilization, good old Anglo-Saxon political traditions. That is absolutely insane. It's a very clear deflection, and a way to get them, of course, away from talking about how the actions of Derek Chauvin were not justified when it came to George Floyd. It was clear police brutality. There was absolute evidence that it was not just Derek Chauvin. It was a training of police. Police trained Chauvin to do that, to react that way. The system is broken. This is what the system teaches you how to treat black men. And so that's, of course, why Derek Chauvin was like, oh, my God, I can't believe his face when he was read off the guilty verdict. It's like, what are you talking about? This is what you trained me to do. This is what you told me to do, and I absolutely did it without any problem. Why am I getting punished? Why am I getting put into jail? Yeah. So that's it. Now, again, there was clear video testimony, video evidence, clear effective testimony that pretty much made this an open and shut case. I don't think the likes of Maxine Waters or anybody could have really swayed the jury more than that, the actual video evidence that was shown during this trial. Open and shut case. In the defense, you notice it was them trying to throw anything that they could at the wall to try to make it stick, and it did not. Again, the evidence was overwhelming. But Tucker Carlson doesn't want to talk about the evidence in the case. No. He wants to talk about the mob. He wants to talk about, witness tampering or how Chauvin is a persecuted hero who was only offered up as a service to the mob for appeasement, which is exactly, of course, what you would expect from someone like Tucker Carlson. But there's more. We've got more cope. We're not done.
We need to reach out to the community and say, can we stop resisting arrest? Can we stop disobeying the police? And these political pundits, these political talking heads, they want you to fight the police. They want you to be killed. So they can make all this money. They can promote it on the news. They can get a payout with the family, and you're going to be dead as a doornail. But unfortunately, money, it talks way too loud for people to listen to basic rhetoric.
Yeah, resisting arrest is, sadly, I think a lot of young people are taught today that if you encounter the police will shoot you. If you don't resist arrest, what are the chances of you getting killed by a police officer in the United States today? Brandon.
It's absolutely zero. I mean, just about zero. I don't think you have any negative interaction with police if you don't resist arrest.
Oh, okay. So that is Laura Ingraham, of course, with right-wing YouTuber Brandon Tatum. And so this is apparently some sort of conspiracy that somehow the left-wing pundits want this kind of stuff to happen. Well, speaking as a left-wing YouTube pundit, I would have to say that no, I would rather not live in a world where people like George Floyd are killed by cops. Regardless of what he did. That you're not the judge, jury, and executioner if you're a police officer. You're not supposed to hold your knee on the back of somebody's neck for almost 9 minutes when they are already restrained. That is excessive force. Ridiculous. Absolute ridiculousness. And look, again, there's a lot of it feels like there's some projection here from Fox News and another YouTube pundit, this time on the right, talking about how, it's just money. Seriously, how many views do right-wing rage videos against black people, how many views did they bring in? How much money? How many clicks? Absolute ridiculousness, projection. And really, it's really kind of hard to understand with all that police boot in his mouth. But again, that same guy said that there was absolutely no problems of police if you follow their orders, and made the case that you only get shot if you resist arrest. Total bootlicker mentality. Absolutely. In reality, here's the thing about resisting arrest. It's actually been abused a lot by police officers, disproportionately towards the black community. It gets used against the white community as well, but when it comes to black suspects, heavily used. New York Times article revealed that between 2009 and 2013, in North Carolina alone, police charged 836 black Americans, but only 209 white people, with resisting, delaying, or obstructing as their only charge. Only charge. So you don't even have to be doing anything wrong. If an officer comes up to you and it gets confrontational and they believe that you're doing something wrong, even when you're not, and a police officer decides they want to put their hands on you to search you or whatever, in the case of like stop and frisk, for example, well, you resist against that. Suddenly you're resisting arrest, and now you've been charged with a crime. That only crime is not following the exact, will of the police officer, whether he was in the right or wrong to stop you. So, I mean, you're a criminal for not complying with the officer. And that's pretty messed up because it does get used against African Americans. Now, Embassy 7 also found that over the last 7 years in California, in San Diego specifically, African Americans were 10 times more likely than white people to be arrested for resisting arrest. I know you could say, well, they're just being taught to resist more, which is Laura Ingraham's argument. And it's because they're inherently distrustful and combative of police, and we've been teaching them all this stuff. So that's, again, Laura Ingraham's argument. However, according to a study in Chicago based on a police officer's own description of more than 60,000 incidents, they revealed that officers use more force more often against black people, even though they actually resist less than white people. I mean, a good example is that shooter. I forget his name now, and I'm totally blanking out on his name. That was brought to Burger King after he committed a mass shooting. White guy. I'm sure, chat, you all know who I'm talking about, even though for some reason I'm blanking out on his name. Dylan Roof, thank you. Was Dylan Roof. Brought him to Burger King. Didn't shoot him, was able to, arrest him without a problem. Now, there's more, of course. We have even more right-wing pundits that have decided to chime in on this, and here's some of that.
I think at the end of the day, people say, you know what, if we acquit this guy, this city is going to burn to the ground. It is going to burn to the ground. So you had a jury that said, you know what, we're going to have to sacrifice this guy to the mob, and that's exactly what I think happened today. Again, you go through all this evidence, I just found more, but Floyd's friends who...
Now, well, let me ask you. Now you got the outside. Now you got the outside influences And there, I think we had a trial that was completely subverted by the media, by Maxine Waters, by numerous other public officials. There's no way the jury wasn't hearing that and paying attention to it. Biggest fiction in the world is that a jury doesn't read the newspapers.
So again, here we go. First one was Newsmax host Rob Schmidt, and of course you know Rudy Giuliani, going with it wasn't based on the facts or anything like that. No, it was the mob. The mob tainted. Okay, here's the thing: the jury isn't made up of idiots. They're not made up of 5-year-olds who will be instantly swayed by if they decide to read something in the newspaper of somebody else's opinion. No, they're supposed to go in. They're supposed to look at the facts. They're supposed to look at what's going on in the case and then make the decision based on those facts. That's the whole point. That's what they're supposed to do. We shouldn't be treating jury members as if they're children. Now, we're not done. we got more. Let's go to Twitter. Some great examples here. To our favorite, Tommy Lauren. Yes, Tammy Tomato. She asks, is the Foot Locker safe tonight? Should be, right? Justice, right? No need to steal in the name of George Floyd anymore, right? Now, this was in response to Don Lemon. But here's the thing. It's not actually justice. It's just accountability. It's accountability for Derek Chauvin, what he did to George Floyd. That didn't need to happen. So, I mean, what a sick tweet by Tommy Lauren, but I'm not surprised. Another response to Don Lemon's tweet, here comes Ben Shapiro saying, we all know he never would have said this had the reverse verdict have been reached. Well, I mean, that's because in that case, it wouldn't be justice. Doesn't make any sense. Tim Pool, who's been wrong just about on everything related to this case. I mean, again, this guy thought that the defense made a slam dunk. Terrible commentary. He said this: cops need to resign en masse right now. And the thinking goes, of course, that, well, okay, lefties, which is ironic because he calls himself a disaffected liberal. All right, lefties, let's get rid of cops and then see what happens. I mean, again, super petulant answer, but I'm not at all surprised. Mike Cernovich also said, police will stop doing their jobs, get out of the cities, live in a deep red area where you're allowed to have lawful concealed carry. It's the era of self-reliance. Are you advocating for all conservatives to live in a safe space, Mike Cernovich? I thought that you weren't in favor of such things. Yeah, I thought you didn't like safe spaces. Weird. And then we have big ideas. Dave Rubin saying, trying to organize my calendar. Are we doing unity and healing now? We're rioting and looting. High-level ideas. High-level ideas, Dave. How much should he get paid to say that? Probably quite a bit. God. Now, you know what? Turns out my brain needs to go into recovery mode after reading those high-level ideas. And I'm finding, here's the most Cope tweet of all. This comes from Liberty Hangout. Saying, justice is dead. And so is this country. An innocent man was just convicted of murder for a crime he never committed. This country sucks. Wow. Delusional. Justice is innocent. Holy, was she watching a completely different trial? Is that what? Delusional. Then, of course, you had Groyper Nick Fuentes tweeting this. Rigged system. And then you have Gateway pundit blogger Cassandra Fairbanks. Now, Cassandra Fairbanks is an interesting character. She cosplayed as a Bernie Sanders supporter back in 2016, where she's Certainly not. At least not anymore. Here's what she wrote. Poor Chauvin. This is awful. He is a political prisoner. Nobody can change my mind on this. And then she deleted the tweet. Probably after getting loads of pushback on that. Maybe, I wonder if she changed her mind. I'm just assuming that Cassandra Fairbanks is just getting paid. And that that was a little too much heat for her. She wasn't getting paid enough for that one. Wow. You know, again, it really shouldn't surprise you in this day and age that getting some measure of police accountability, since they've been unaccountable for doing what they've been doing for a very, very long time, for unjust state violence. This is state-sponsored violence, by the way, against an American citizen without their due process would somehow enrage freedom-loving conservatives. I thought you were all about due process. I thought that's what you cared about. Instead, you're in favor of unlawful search and seizure for laws like, you know, stop and frisk, or basically having a police officer being able to, you know, be basically an executioner and defending police officers that kill black men because they might have a little bit of drugs in their system. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And look, even the part of George Floyd, he was so-called resisting arrest by trying to position himself to the point of where he could breathe. Whew. It really does show that their entire worldview, for them, is a joke. It's a sham. Okay, these people are they don't have an ideology. They're reactionaries. That especially in the case of Dave Rubin, who gets paid lots and lots of money because that's why he left DYT. He left it because they couldn't pay him a six-figure salary. That's why. And that's why he teamed up with PragerU. Why I left the left? Why? It's because there's no money on the left. I'm going to go where the money is. It's all been about the money with a lot of these people, with a lot of these grifters. Again, Tim Pool's got a gigantic mansion with a skate park. That's what you get from being the right wing. And by the way, I've also been offered, apparently, as an influencer, to be a conservative influencer, lots and lots of money. That's where all the money is. That's why people do this. That's who these people are. To own the libs, basically. Because there are some very deep-pocketed billionaires that pay people like this to say these kinds of abhorrent things. Even if it means going against the rights of another person to have their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, doesn't matter, because those grifter bucks, they're delicious. All right. Moving on, let's go to Nancy Pelosi. Oof. I hear that Nancy Pelosi is pretty bad at public speaking. I mean, she's pretty terrible at this. Even when it appears that her heart might be in the right place, she ends up saying and doing the most tone-deaf things like this.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous.
Oh, wow. How are you this bad at this? Oof. I mean, look, she's been in Congress for like a million years. How does she still somehow end up being so incredibly cringe and tone deaf? George Floyd, let me be clear. My problem with her statement is that George Floyd did not sacrifice himself for justice. Okay, there was no justice in this case. Okay, one of the 3 guilty verdicts. That's not justice. That's accountability. Okay, he was murdered by a police officer. George Floyd was. So it just total cringe. Wow. Yes, for being the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi is absolutely terrible at communication. True. Suffice to say, she got ratio to oblivion on Twitter. Here's what one person says. Thank you, George Floyd, for being murdered. Another person says, murder victims are not martyrs. You're not sacrificing your life when your life is taken from you. This ain't no barbecue cookout kumbaya situation. We wouldn't have to fight if there wasn't a murder in the first place, if the systems weren't messed up. It's almost as if Nancy Pelosi is a person that has a lot of power in our current government, and that they could actually, I don't know, do something about this. Now, finally, the Democrats are looking somewhat towards police reform, even though there were reports, and I could not find the report earlier, but last night I had seen something scrolling around, a report where Democrats were first talking about how, now that George Floyd, or I should say Derek Chauvin, had been convicted of 3 counts, we're going to pull back on some of our police reforms because the system's working as intended. Now, I couldn't find that. I can't source that. And now a lot of Democrats, at least in some of the reports, are saying, no, this reignited the push for reform, which is the correct way to go. But yeah, they are endemic in the system, and they have not only refused to change the system up until now, but it also, especially in the case of Joe Biden and being, when he was a congressman, pushing more of this tough on crime stuff. So they are part of the problem. And if you don't want to be part of the problem, then you should really start actually being part of the solution. And that's just not going out and saying platitudes like this. So now, more here. Timothy Burke says, an absolutely bizarre statement from Pelosi about a man murdered by law enforcement. Dana Goldberg says, I love Pelosi, but George Floyd didn't sacrifice his life for justice. He was murdered by Derek Chauvin. Words matter. They absolutely do. Another person says, thank you, Bus, Nancy Pelosi at the end of Speed. That's a good reference. Another person says, thank you for your sacrifice for iceberg awareness, Titanic. Another person says, thank you, murdered person, for without your horrific killing, we would never have known that it's not okay to kill people for no reason. And a couple more here. Edward Angueso Jr. says this is even worse than when they wore kente cloth and kneeled for 8 minutes. Oof. That is incredibly cringe. Kente. I remember that. For people in power to go and do essentially this performative stuff. And that's what this is, performative, right? Instead of actually pushing legislation, we don't want to hear platitudes. The Black community does not want to hear platitudes. They are the ones that are suffering the most. What they want is action. What people want is for you to actually do something. Use whatever power you can to push legislation that will help. And look, there is legislation. And so I'm not saying that they're not doing that. What I'm saying is that we could do without the platitudes. Because right now, what you have, and this tweet is a good example of this, Nathan McDermott points out that there seems to be a reoccurring train of thought among some white liberals that Black people exist to suffer and purge America of its sins. I think that's an excellent point. And here's the thing about this, right? Again, this verdict, as good as it was essentially the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. But you've got libs out there that are saying that this is the end of racism. celebrating it like it's the end. Like, racism's over. Look at that. We got justice for George Floyd. No, we didn't. No, this is the beginning of the fight. And yes, I understand we got to take the W on this, but without systemic change, this is going to continue happening. In fact, it had happened as soon as, like, during the time that the verdict was being read. There was another, this time a black woman, that was shot and killed by a police officer for having a knife. Look, there are ways, again, going back to the Dylan Roof example, there are ways that you can take someone who is armed into custody without killing them. You don't need to kill everyone. And unfortunately, what we have is a situation where police will kill black people at higher instances with white people. One man going to jail is not going to fix. It's not going to fix America. The only thing that we need now to do is to do systemic change. That, of course, does take time. It does take legislation, and it does take a change, a shift in culture. Now, Pelosi, of course, did attempt to clarify this. She came out later and said George Floyd should be alive today. His family's calls for justice for his murder were heard around the world. He did not die in vain. We must make sure other families don't suffer the same racism, violence, and pain. And we must enact the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And so I'm going to link that in the video so you get more details about the legislation that they're trying to do. That said, I don't think Nancy Pelosi should be allowed in front of a camera anymore. Not without, like, prepared remarks. She does not do very well. And let me tell you, from this to the, remember with the We Feed Them during an interview with CNN, she is terrible. No, I don't believe in, I don't believe in lizard people, but if anybody could point to somebody and be like that, I think that could be a lizard person. Might be Nancy Pelosi. Just no, and no, I don't believe in lizard people. But she is just so tone deaf, disconnected. And look, Nancy Pelosi has a million other problems. She is, of course, disconnected from the American people. We've seen that. She's also corrupt. She also takes a lot of money from corporations, do their bidding, stifles progressive policy, all that stuff. And so Nancy Pelosi, just unmitigated disaster. Please stop. Just stop. That's all I have to say on that. Okay, so yeah, I need to go and do more research on that that story, but about the girl who was killed. Apologies for that. All right, so that said, I'm going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back. Don't worry, we got more stories for you all, and we're going to go to dunking on Donald Trump's legacy. Awesome. And then we've got FoxConn. That is screwing over workers in Wisconsin. So, yeah, workers and taxpayers. So, stay right here around the nation. Be right back.
It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks.
Who's got a hammer?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation, Waldorf Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so I'm going to read a couple of super chats here before I get back into the next couple of stories. But before I do that, of course, thank you, chat, for correcting me. You know I love you. Yes, this was the police shooting that happened in Columbus, Ohio. I was reading about this. It is a 16-year-old child. Yeah, the police officer did use deadly force, and there's body cam footage. And so I will go and review some of that later on as well to get more knowledgeable about that story. But thank you for directing me in the right way. All right, so, and that said, let's do some super chats here. Star Trek says Pelosi needs a disclaimer before going on TV. Yes, warning, massive cringe. Cringe incoming. Red alert on cringe. Virginia Thomas, aka Stragan, says, first, Tucker Carlson shouldn't promise people a good time by saying people like him will leave. The girl that was shot, I think they might have had to. Again, from what I've read, and I still don't know all the details, the police were saying, well, I mean, she was going to stab somebody else, so I had to intervene. And then they did life-saving measures. And so I don't know. I still think it's I'm going to need more details. I'm going to need a lot more details. Okay. So yeah, before I make a decision. All right. So anyway, that said, LL says, I'm really liking your new studio. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do really appreciate that. I've been working on it. I'm finally at a place where I'm kind of comfortable, even though I want to add some more stuff to the background. They did shoot the very person who called them there. That's not good. Again, I definitely need to read more details about this. And I don't want to come off with the nuclear hot takes. Try not to do that in the show. All right. That said, let's get back into it. Let's see. It appears that former President Donald Trump's legacy, his big, beautiful border wall, is getting beaten by a very simple invention, the invention of a ladder. Yes. There's a new report from Texas Monthly that is claiming the United States Border Patrol is finding itself constantly having to destroy, dismantle, and remove cheap $5 ladders that it finds left on the side of the wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Because, of course, sure. Of course. In fact, the Border Patrol says it destroys so many ladders that it has to call the city of Hidalgo, Texas, to haul away the piles of lumber that are produced by the destroyed ladders. This is great. So, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? The wall is a stupid idea. It's a stupid idea made by stupid people, perpetuated by people who are equally stupid. I mean, come on. Now, Scott Nickel, local artist and activist, tells the Texas Monthly that the ladders used by undocumented immigrants to enter the United States show how useless Trump's most beloved infrastructure project is. Quote, unlike the wall, these ladders are functional. Border walls are just backdrops for politicians who want to rile up their voters. And I think that explains many who've supported this on the right wing. I mean, a ladder beats a wall. You build a higher wall, well, then people just bring a higher ladder. I mean, what are you going to do? Build the wall to space? You're just going to have somebody fly over it. It doesn't work. And who could have known? Who could have known? I mean, anybody with two brain cells to rub together knows that, walls are not going to keep people out. But conservatives, they're not sending their best. They're not sending their best. Look, again, you can go over a wall, you can go under a wall, you can go around it. At the end of the day, it doesn't work. Walls for keeping immigrants out don't work. Well, what does that? Might be your question. Because, again, okay, we have an issue right now with unaccompanied children. Okay, you've got a lot of children without parents coming over the border. Okay, now the Biden administration is like, oh my God, it's a crisis, right? At least conservatives are like, oh my God, oh, look at all these people, dangerous migrants coming out. Look at the caravans. Now, I see the problem is logistic, okay? So right now, we don't have a lot of places to safely put people, okay? So we need to get on that. We're a wealthy country. We can afford to house people and house them in safe, sanitary conditions where they have their needs met. We are able to do this, okay? Unfortunately, we are having a very difficult time doing this right now, even under the Biden administration. And so really, if you want to stop that problem, then you got to get to the root of the source, okay? The root of the problem. And that, of course, is much more difficult to do than building a wall because you'd actually have to end the drug war. That would be one. Increase aid to countries in order to combat global poverty. You also need to end the military involvement in places where, for example, Central and South America. You need to end the corporate exploitation of these regions and people contained in them. For example, one of the reasons that a lot of immigrants came from Mexico is because we destroyed the corn industry in Mexico by heavily subsidizing American corn industries. And so Mexican farmers were not able to compete against American made corn. And so, again, because we heavily subsidize it, and now it's pretty much in everything. Everything's got corn in it, corn syrup, all of that. And so they were left without anything to be able to do. So they went over to America looking for opportunity for jobs to escape crushing poverty. That's a result of us. Again, people that are fleeing the violence in Central America. That is a result of our foreign policy. And so, yes, we do have some. It turns out we have some influence in the world. I know it's weird. Super strange. Super strange. But, that's just indicative, though, of like how difficult it is to do this compared to basically doing a giant virtue signal like a wall. And so that's why weak, ineffective politicians like Republicans simply put up walls and hope for the best. It does nothing. It creates some temporary construction jobs, gives us the illusion of having done something about immigration when you've actually literally done nothing. Have we learned nothing from the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the Siege of Troy, Jericho? Anybody? Jericho? It's so stupid. Again, we need massive immigration reform in this country, a pathway to citizenship so that people, when they get here, will first be documented. They'll be able to go out and work, and they'll be able to get stuff because they already pay taxes here. They'll be able to get the things from the tax money that they've already been paying into. Again, undocumented immigrants are a huge source of tax revenue, but they get nothing in return. They also end up creating a lot of businesses. They stay out of trouble with law enforcement way more than people who are actually born here. And so what we need is an actual solution and not dumbass walls that cost billions of dollars that a $5 ladder from Home Depot could defeat. And here's the thing. I know Trump's out of power. Well, then why am I doing this? Why am I talking about this? Because the Biden administration right now doesn't know what they're going to do with the wall. Now, Biden originally said, I'm going to tear it down. Now they're like, I don't know, maybe we'll build onto it. Maybe. So right now, there's a lot of mixed messages. In fact, recently it was reported that Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas recently told his agency employees that construction on Trump's border wall may resume to, quote, plug some of the gaps according to the Washington Times. And I know they're a conservative libertarian source, but like, why would you do this? Why would you like continue construction on a wall that doesn't work? Not only that, but after running for office, vowing not to build another foot of Trump's wall, Biden signed an executive order on Inauguration Day ending the national emergency at the border and launching a 60-day review of the project, pausing construction and calling for a plan to redirect unspent funds. Now, I have a problem with him pausing this instead of canceling it. He should have just said, no, well, I mean it. I mean business. Cancel all the projects. And now, 60 days. It's been 60 days since that happened, and the government is still trying to take land via eminent domain and lawsuits in order to build a wall. So, Luke Ellis, this is a Texas attorney representing border landowners in court, said, quote, "The 60-day window has come and gone. The most recent update we have from the lawyers from the government is that they still don't know what's going to happen. So there is no clear leadership on this issue, which means they could still go back to resuming construction, or maybe they won't. We don't know." Gloria Pena, an attorney for the Texas Civil Rights Project, which is a nonprofit group that is opposed to building the wall, said, quote, "The president has been very clear on the record that he is committed to no longer confiscating land. However, this group, which has called on Biden to keep the campaign pledge to withdraw lawsuits and return land to property owners, says, from our perspective, this still has felt like a massive betrayal." True. And with Biden right now, together, trying to reduce the number of refugees, at least until he got caught, it feels like he's either still committed to keeping out immigrants almost as much as what we did under Donald Trump, or caving to the right wing and trying to not appear, quote unquote, weak towards Fox News, towards conservatives when it comes to immigration. And that, of course, is not what we voted for. We're not back in 2008. A lot of people are now more understanding. We see that immigration is a net good. And so what we want is not more walls, more ridiculous stuff, keeping people out. What we want is real solutions and not more BS like what we saw with Trump. Okay. Moving on here. Last story of the day. Taiwanese manufacturer FoxConn has just announced that it will scale back a planned $10 billion factory in Wisconsin. So now this was under a deal with the state of Wisconsin. Announced on Tuesday, FoxConn will reduce its planned investment to $672 million from what was originally planned to be a $10 billion investment in Wisconsin that was supposed to have about 13,000 new jobs. Now, of course, I've talked about how that original deal was quite the boondoggle, that it would be an incredibly expensive amount of investment from the taxpayers of Wisconsin for just 13,000 jobs. But it looks as though we're not going to get that many jobs. In fact, the most that we would get is about 1,454 jobs in total. Great. So much for that. I mean, here's the thing. As somebody who was in labor, manufacturing for a significant chunk of my life, I feel for them, because those were, at one point, were good jobs, good union jobs. They are not anymore. And so for the people in Wisconsin, I absolutely feel for you for that, and especially those who ended up paying, with their tax money for these breaks that are going to go to a very limited select number of jobs. It's almost as if all these projects, not only under Trump, but for example, the Keystone XL pipeline that was supposed to bring thousands and thousands of good paying jobs turned out to not. Weird. It's almost as if corporations lie. Now, according to Reuters, this is give me some background information here. The FoxConn Wisconsin deal was first announced at great fanfare at the White House in July 2017, with Trump boasting of it as an example of how this America First agenda could revive tech manufacturing. Again, it's not really America First when you inviting a foreign company into Wisconsin, which all the money, of course, is pretty much going to get extracted, all the profit extracted not to the United States, but to executives in Taiwan, in China. I don't see how that's really America First. But hey, jobs. Okay, so that's what this is always about. Okay, jobs, and then that translates into job approval for the politician that allows for those jobs. Now, for FoxConn, Reuters continues, the investment promise was an opportunity for its founder to build goodwill at a moment when Trump's trade policies threatened the company's cash cow, building Apple's iPhones in China, with, of course, you could almost call it slave-like conditions, slave labor for export to America. And then you have the whole issue of the Uyghurs being put into labor camps and all that. And so, yeah. And now, by the way, maybe as a result of the pandemic, but there is a specific item. You might have noticed that PlayStation 5s are not readily available for purchase. There is a specific part that Foxconn produces that is in very, very short supply right now. That goes not only to PlayStation 5s, but it goes into computers, cell phones. So there is there's a problem here when when it's so restricted to one or two companies that are built on exploitive labor practices. And this is what we wanted to bring to America. This is what Mitt Romney originally went to China when he was running for president, wanted to bring over. Remember, Foxconn in China had suicide nets. GPUs are not available either. Yes, because they're missing that particular component. And so now Foxconn is actually the world's largest manufacturer of electronic devices. And they had proposed the 20 million square foot campus in Wisconsin that would have been a gigantic investment, the biggest by a foreign-based company. They were supposed to, I guess, build flat panel display TV screens and other devices, but that, of course, did not happen. And the thing about this is that Foxconn already knew that it wasn't going to happen. In fact, industry executives, including some at the company itself, were skeptical of the plan from the beginning, pointing out that some of the crucial suppliers needed for flat panel display production were not located anywhere near Wisconsin. So supply issues and all of that. And yet, because, thanks to Governor Scott Walker at the time, offering up such wonderful incentives, billions of dollars in incentives, tax breaks, and special deals, enticed Foxconn to go and build there. And of course, it turned out once again to blow up in the face of people in Wisconsin, the taxpayers, of course. Not only that, but you had critics that pointed out these taxpayer giveaways and provisions of the deal that granted extensive rights to water and allowed for the acquisition and demolition of houses through the process of eminent domain. As for 2019, the village where the plant located had paid just over $152 million for 132 properties to make way for Foxconn, plus had paid $7.9 million in relocation costs. According to village records obtained by Wisconsin Public Radio and analyzed by Wisconsin Watch. Already that's bad enough. So all those people were needlessly moved for no reason. Again, it gets worse. After abandoning its plans for advanced displays, Foxconn also later said that it would build smaller, earlier generation displays in Wisconsin, but that plan did not come to fruition either. So It's almost as if we cannot trust companies to not just take taxpayer money and run. Just saying. Now, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, Democrat, said that under this new deal negotiated by the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and FoxConn, the company is now only eligible to receive $80 million in performance-based tax credits over 6 years if it meets employment and capital investment targets. He stressed that the incentives were in line with those available to any company. The state will reduce the tax credits authorized to $80 million from originally $2.85 billion. The original Wisconsin package also included local tax incentives, road and highway investments by state and local governments, which brought the total taxpayer-funded subsidies to more than $4 billion. Billion. And yes, not all that money has been spent, but some of it has by a place that's been hit pretty hard, not only by the recession, of course, but also now by the pandemic. To date, Wisconsin has spent probably around $400 million on road improvements, tax exemptions, grants to local governments for worker training and employment, and Mount Pleasant, the small town where the factory was supposed to be built, ended up actually taking on millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in debt that was supposed to be repaid by taxes generated by the project. And now they're, of course, not able to get that because there's only going to be, instead of 13,000 workers contributing higher wages towards taxes in the area, now you've got 1,500. Instead of old local businesses that would support this much larger workforce, now they're not going to be able to do that because there will be no 13,000 worker workforce and no supporting businesses to now support that, which means, of course, this town is left in a massive amount of debt and a massive hole and no way to get out of it because of FoxConn, because of this deal, because of Scott Walker, and because of Donald Trump. It's an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. Again, I absolutely 100% feel for the people who were there who got duped. And I'm talking about the workers here. People who were, thought that maybe finally they were going to have a chance at at what they would think was a competitive, a good job, a good paying job, and now they get completely screwed over it. Gigantic money sink. And now, as The Verge explains, quote, the original contract effectively reimbursed FoxConn for 15% of its capital investment and 70% of its payroll, provided it hit certain targets each year. This was an outlandishly lucrative subsidy. If FoxConn built an expensive and highly automated factory that employed few workers, the total expense per job would have come to around $1 million per job. In 2019, economist Timothy Bardick compiled a report at the request of the Evers administration and also found that FoxConn's incentives would actually fall around $172,000 to $290,000 per job. Average U.S. incentives are $24,000 per job, he wrote. Oof. Since the amendment, the per job subsidy is still a lot higher than the average. It would still be around $41,000. So again, it continues to be just an absolute boondoggle. The company would receive subsidies equal up to about 7% of wages, 10% of capital investment. However, that is in line with the state's general enterprise zone program, again, which is just nothing more than massive giveaways and goodies to giant corporations. So all of this, I wonder why. I mean, seriously, you know what? I'm incredibly tired of how this system works, how taxpayers have to foot the bill to get these gigantic, wealthy companies to come in and create a few jobs. I mean, it feels like a net loss, really. I don't understand how this is supposed to be something that is smart. How getting taxpayers to fund their own jobs. I mean, And that, of course, they end up getting taxed for working there for as well. And that labor, the value produced by their labor, gets then taken mostly by the executives. And they're left, they have what little is left over. It's ridiculous. It feels like it's a terrible deal for anyone who's not an executive. And apparently that's your problem. Capitalism. Look, a lot of small businesses don't get these giveaways. And they actually end up employing lots more people overall. It's really only large companies like your Walmarts, your FoxConns that come in. They have exploitive business practices. Amazon's the same way. They drain the communities. They destroy the small businesses by driving, in a lot of cases, driving wages down. Or making it so that they have a monopoly on certain businesses, or they can use their gigantic lobbying budgets to change laws in certain areas that will then favor them over other small businesses, or just or just other businesses in general. That's the problem. And then, as we've seen with Walmarts before, once they've done all that and their goodies dry up, well, then they pick up and leave. It's happened a million times, and yet the city governments still continue to do that. They fall for the same trick every time because, again, it comes down to, well, we need jobs. If there are more jobs, if more people are working, then even if they're shit jobs, I can sit there and I can boast about how I have created so many jobs in my administration, and that will get me to get reelected. And that's how the system is stacked against the workers and in favor of these giant corporations. But hey, even though you're kind of screwed, at least you got a job, right? Well, in the case of people in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, that's not the case. Not the case at all. All right. It appears my chat has been derailed. I see you. I see the conversation you're having. I see all. And I knew all. Or not. So, look, let's try not to get too heated on that subject that I know that you're talking about. Y'all, remember, we're all in here for the same reason. We want progressive policies. We want this country to go forward in the leftward direction. We want good policy. We want Medicare for all. And the only difference I think that we have is that we differ on the ways to achieve that and how long, we're willing to wait to have these policies enacted. So, anyway. Yeah, let us continue to push towards socialism. Absolutely. All right. Hey, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Never already. I do thank you for complimenting me on the lights. Lisa, thank you. I like the new lighting too. And again, I got to play with it yesterday, which I'm always happy to do. Putting on the red alert. I'm not sure what color I like better. Really. We got red alert going on here. I don't know. It's good stuff. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure what color I like to go with. There's a little bit of green there. All right. Yeah, I am always happy to play with things. I'm like a child. I'm usually entertained. This is what it is. All right, everybody. Again, thank you for going around the nation with me today. I got to get to editing stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed the show today. Y'all know I love you. You all know I appreciate you. So thank you so much. Miss Tina, you're a little late. We're just wrapping up the show here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on Twitch, I think I'm going to go. Oh, thank you, Asploom85, for gifting that tier 1 sub, by the way. When did we have green? We don't actually have a green alert, but I think there's a blue alert, there's a black alert, there's a yellow alert, and there's a red alert. It shows us how much I know about Star Trek. Like, too much. Way too much. All right, so I think we're going to raid into... who are we going to raid into today? Let's see. We raid into... Here's what I got. We can raid into the Serfs. We can raid into Left Flank Vets. Tiffany Starr, who's playing some Dark Souls. Yeah. So those are the only ones that I can see that are on. No. Black Alert is... Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I get it. All right, we got 1 vote for Tiffany Starr. Democracy has spoken. Go watch Tiffany Starr rage at Dark Souls 3. All right. Everyone else on YouTube, go and check her out. Have fun, and we will see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you.
Tighten up my meat.
There's some whores in this house.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Mike Pounds.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass P-word.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door. There's insanity in the control room.